Talofa, hello, welcome to the OUM community and our November webinar for prospective students. I'm so glad that you've decided to join us, whether you're here in person or joining us via recording. So hi to Anthony and Bruna, Hasnudin, Michael and Olu, and to those of you who are joining us via recording, hi to you as well. And hi Hope and Chris also. So tonight's webinar is scheduled as our Meet the Dean for Samoa, Aotearoa, New Zealand, and American Samoa and the Asia Pacific. However, our Dean had his flight to Samoa rescheduled. So he has recorded a message for each of you so you can get to know him a little bit better. And then I'll be talking a little bit about the Samoan rotation requirement and answering any questions that you may have about the Samoan rotation requirement. And we can also take any other questions you have about OUM at that time. I have also invited some of our clinical students who completed their rotation in Samoa to join us as well to share their stories. All of those students are currently on clinical rotation, so I've asked them if they're able to pop out of rotation for a few minutes to share their story, that they'd be welcome to come at any point during the session. So I'll be monitoring my attendees, and if I see any of our clinical students or alums pop in, then I'll stop where we're at and invite them to the floor to share their story. So without further ado, allow me to share my screen and we can share our message from our acting dean. Okay, here we go.
Talofa lava, kia ora, and namaste. I'm Dr. Vikas Sethi, the Acting Dean for Samoa, American Samoa, New Zealand, and the Asia Pacific, and I'm the Clinical Kōkō Specialist for Family Medicine here at the Oceania University of Medicine. When I'm not at OUM, I'm the Clinical Director of Prana Family Health in Auckland. But my greatest role, without question, is being a dad to our almost teen son, who is the heart of everything I do and the guy who inspires me daily. My very first memory of wanting to become a doctor began when I grew up in Kenya, in Africa. From a really early age, I witnessed this huge gap in access to healthcare. There was a stark contrast between the different socioeconomic classes, between health literacy and helplessness. I saw how illness could destroy entire families, and I learned early that health is not just a science, it's actually a social justice. Then, as a high school student, came the terrorist bomb blast in Nairobi, and that changed everything. I still picture the destruction, the chaos, the pain, and the silence that followed. As a school kid, I started turning up at hospitals after school and on weekends, volunteering, fetching supplies, doing anything I possibly could do to help. And that was the moment my curious, science-loving mind shifted. I realized that medicine isn't just about knowing, it's about healing. It's not a science of the body alone, it's the art of being compassionate. And that belief is what shaped who I am today. So I went off to the University of Sheffield in the UK at a very young age of 17, and I was done by the age of 21, 22. And I think that's one of the reasons I feel such a strong connection to OUM's postgraduate model. OUM gives people the chance to bring their life experience into medicine, and something that I really, really value. In fact, I often wish I wish I'd done paramedicine first to gain those raw frontline skills of pre-hospital care before I stepped into the hospital system. So in my second year, I actually became the international representative for the medical school and started traveling overseas, especially back to Kenya, representing my university at fairs. And by my third year, I was helping interview future medical students. And that's when my love for teaching, mentoring, and helping others achieve their dream of becoming doctors was born. So I completed my internship in the UK and I moved to New Zealand. And I was initially convinced that I just wanted to be a cardiologist. And like every other medical student, I changed my mind a dozen times. After a year in cardiology and 2 years in geriatric medicine, I then realized my true calling was family medicine. I get asked quite often why family medicine. And I think family medicine is the only specialty where you treat the whole person. You walk alongside families through birth, through illness, through grief, through recovery. So you're not just a doctor, you become part of the community's story. And for me, that's a privilege unlike any other. I've now been a GP in Auckland for over 15 years. And after my family medicine specialist training, with the support of my family, we opened our own practice. And today we operate 3 clinics across Auckland. And at our clinics, we focus on that innovative, patient-centered care, meeting all the modern needs in this growing technology world. And we use all the latest technology, and we're quite compassionate. The team's pretty outstanding, and it's actually because of them that I can dedicate a third of my week to OUM, mentoring and developing students and future doctors. So my relationship with OUM began almost a decade ago. There was a medical student who knocked on the door. I think he was another colleague's relative, and he said, "Hey, can I do a family medicine co-rotation with you?" So I was quite curious to understand about OUM, and what I discovered was pretty extraordinary. And a few years later, after I'd mentored 2 or 3 students through family medicine, one of my patients, who's actually now one of our staff, decided to pursue medicine at OUM. And I mentored him from day one. And I got the privilege of mentoring him through his OUM course, his final clinical exam, and his OSCE, which he's now passed. And through his journey, I saw firsthand the difference that OUM makes. So OUM is not just another medical school. It's this boutique university, and we know our students by name. We understand their stories, we know their struggles, their dreams, their vision, and our faculty and administrators are so invested, not just in our students' academics, but in their personal growth. Every single one of us is driven by the same founding vision, and that's Taffy Gould's vision, that passion, education, and humanity should have no boundaries. We don't just train doctors, we nurture healers. We ground them with empathy, resilience, and service. And that ethos resonates with everything I do, whether it's at my clinic, at OUM, and across every walk of life. So here in New Zealand and Samoa, we have quite a few clinical opportunities for our students, and we're rapidly expanding our presence. So students now have access to rotations in family medicine, pediatrics, gynecology, musculoskeletal medicine, orthopedics, and emergency medicine here in New Zealand. And we're working hard to secure more placements for them for psychiatry, surgery, and internal medicine. If we don't get it here in New Zealand, currently, our students travel over to Australia to do their rotations. In Samoa, our heart beats even stronger. The TTM hospital offers world-class environment for both core and elective opportunities. And we have a great clinical coordinator out there, and she's got a good team working at the OUM office in TTM hospital. And all our clinical coordinators work tirelessly to make sure the students gain exposure to a rich variety of cases, all within this culturally grounding learning environment. And that's what I find amazing about doing placements in Samoa. So at Oceania University of Medicine, the clinical program phase of the course takes about 56 weeks of core rotations and 16 weeks of electives. And there's a requirement for a 4-week period in Samoa. And that doesn't have to just be an elective. It could even be a core rotation. And many students choose to stay longer and do either a core or elective experience in Samoa. And why Samoa? And you know what? It's a living classroom. You learn the science of medicine, and there's a whole art of being a different human. You'll gain hands-on experience in resourceful settings. You'll develop cultural intelligence, and you'll see firsthand how compassion and adaptability define great physicians. Samoa will teach you not just to treat patients, but to understand the patients, understand their stories, understand their traditions, understand their resilience. So as you continue your studies and look ahead to your clinical years, just remember, the medicine is not a destination. It's a journey. It's a journey of growth, service, and gratitude. I wish you all a wonderful weekend. And on that note, this was a recorded session because I'm currently on board a flight to Samoa to meet my wonderful students out there. And I hope to meet many of you in person or via Zoom one day and continue building this incredible Pacific story together. Whawhetai te lava, thank you, and God bless.
Whawhetai, Dr. Rikas, and hi to your son and to Mrs. Seppi as well. We hope that you've enjoyed that recording with your family member, and we're so pleased to have Dr. Rikas as our acting dean for Aotearoa, New Zealand, for Samoa, for American Samoa, and for the Asia Pacific. So as you heard Dr. Seppi mention, all OUM students are required to complete one clinical rotation in Samoa. And that clinical rotation must be at least 4 weeks. You can complete more than 4 weeks of clinical rotations in Samoa, and you can choose to either do a core or an elective rotation in Samoa. So as you may know from your research about the university, OUM is based in Samoa at TTM Hospital, or Tupua Tamasese Mea Ole Hospital, which is right in Apia in Samoa. Beautiful area, beautiful people, wonderful facilities at the hospital there. And although OUM is based in Samoa, we welcome students from Australia, from Aotearoa, New Zealand, from Samoa and American Samoa, from the United States, and from Canada. In addition to those 5 countries, we have students who are from 56 different birth countries. So we have students from all over the world, but all of our students are residents or citizens of one of those 5 countries. And the majority of our students will complete the majority of their rotations in their home country, but they must complete at least 4 weeks of rotation in Samoa. So some students choose to do their Samoan rotation after their 56 weeks of core rotations in their home country, and then they'll go to Samoa and complete a 4-week elective. Other students may choose to complete their Samoa rotation earlier on in the clinical years. We provide flexibility to our students in terms of scheduling their rotations at a time that works best for them and the rotation that they most would like to do when they go to Samoa. As Dr. Seppi mentioned, there are multiple different types of clinical rotations that you can take in Samoa. The 2 most popular for OUM students at the moment are the psychiatry rotation, because it allows for seeing of patients both within hospital at TTM as well as within community. So it provides a great experience and opportunity to see more of Samoa, to meet more of the people of Samoa. And the second one that's quite popular is obstetrics and gynecology, because you get a lot more hands-on experience with obstetrics and gynecology in Samoa because of the ability of students to gain that hands-on experience where they wouldn't in countries like the United States and Australia, where insurance and regulations regarding medical students touching pediatric patients and neonatal patients is a lot more strict, whereas in Samoa, there is hands-on learning with the clinicians, and students are allowed to actually deliver babies as part of their obs and gyne rotation, which is a real big highlight for a number of our students. So I wanted to provide some further information about what to expect and the types of support that OUM provides you, so that you know you won't just get dropped off of a plane onto the tarmac and have to figure it all out when you go to Samoa for your clinical rotation. One of our former admin officers in the TTM OUM office has provided us with some further information, which I would like to share now. I just quickly see that there is a question in the Q&A, so I'll take that before I start this portion. So Anonymous wants to know, good evening, thank you for hosting this session. I just wanted to kindly ask, is this event and program also intended for applicants from the United States or primarily for students from Samoa, New Zealand, and the Asia Pacific region? So this is intended for students from every region because all students must complete a rotation in Samoa. For students who are located in Samoa, American Samoa, Aotearoa, New Zealand, and the Asia Pacific. Additionally, you will have Dr. Sethi as your dean. So it was a good opportunity to just get to hear a little bit more about his experience and why he has joined OUM and what you might expect from Dr. Sethi when and if you join OUM. So please feel free to ask questions if you are a student in Aotearoa, New Zealand, or Samoa, or the Asia Pacific region that's specific to your region. And please feel free, if you are from one of the other regions, you are welcome here as well. We want you to know a little bit more about what to expect when you go to Samoa. And if you have questions that are specific to your region as well, you're more than welcome to place them in the Q&A box. All right, let me provide a little bit more information about rotations in Samoa. And then I can take some further questions, both on the Samoa rotations, as well as any other topics that questions you may have on your mind for this evening. So we don't just drop students into Samoa. There's a number of things that need to be done in the planning stages that are supported by the OUM office staff that are located in Samoa. So firstly, all students, whether they be from Australia or Aotearoa, New Zealand, even American Samoa, or the United States and Canada, they all have to obtain approval from the Ministry of Health in Samoa in order to complete clinical rotations in the hospital system in Samoa. OUM actually was opened and is governed by legislation in Samoa. So it's part of the inner workings of how Samoa works as a nation. And so part of that legislation is that the Ministry of Health approves students who are there as part of OUM doing their rotations to ensure that there's safety for the students to complete their rotations, that they have the best experience possible, and also that there's safety for the patients and clinicians in the hospital. So you don't have to write essays for that. There's just some basic paperwork that we fill out on your behalf with the Ministry of Health, and we ask for documentation such as things like immunization records and so forth to make sure that you are good to go for your rotation in Samoa. And that all happens before you book a plane ticket, get on a plane, or arrive in Samoa. So all that paperwork is taken care of in advance. The second thing that the Samoan office staff will do is that they will liaise with the preceptors, the clinical rotation supervisors in Samoa, to schedule the dates and duration of your rotation in Samoa to ensure that you have a match with the time that you're available to go to Samoa and the rotation that you would like. So again, we ask students to plan in advance. So once you start your clinical rotations, we ask you to look at your calendar for the upcoming 2 years or so that you're in clinical rotations, and to select a time and an appropriate rotation that you'd like to take. And then we can work with you to work with our hospital staff at TTM Hospitals to secure that rotation and date. Once that rotation date and type is secured and all your paperwork is in with MOH, we will work with you to gather any supporting documents that you need for a student visa application. In Samoa, it's not as involved or difficult as obtaining student visas in some other countries. We have over 300 students, nearly 400 students that we complete this type of paperwork for on a regular basis. So we don't have generally issues for students obtaining their visas to work at TTM Hospital, but nevertheless, that paperwork must be completed. You're not required to do that on your own. We want to make sure that it's completed in full prior to your arrival in Samoa. So that's why we have our office staff to take care of that. Once you arrive in Samoa, they will provide you with a tour of the hospital facility, but I'm going to even just interject between steps 3 and 4 here to say before you arrive in Samoa, the office staff can also help you with obtaining your residence for when you are there in Samoa. So most of our students stay in housing that's right across the street from the hospital. So our majority of students will stay there, and the office staff can work with you to secure that housing. And they also will give you information about, how to get a cab from the airport, where you need to go, addresses, so on and so forth. Once you arrive at your housing, if you need any support with housing or anything else, you can email the office staff, and they're there to support you, especially because they're nice and close. Before your first day, they'll give you a tour of the TTM facility. They can support you not only in finding your housing, but ensuring that once you're there, you have access to grocery stores and VIN cards for your phone, places to eat, sites to see. So they're there to support you for that. Even some of our preceptors are wanting to ensure that you see the sights of Samoa and have a chance to meet some of the people in the population outside of the patient population. So you may see some additional supports from our preceptors there as well. And then if students have needs while they're on the island, or if they have questions or queries, they are welcome to stop in and chat with the TTM office staff any day that they wish. They're there Monday through Friday, and they're also available via email and phone as well. So that's the general level of support that our office staff will provide to you. They also will support you kind of closing up your rental housing and getting you back to the airport on your return trip. In addition to the office support students, I've noticed over this interview season, sometimes students have a question that I could have mentioned a bit earlier too, which is like, oh, what about the language barrier? Like, will I be able to, speak with the office staff? Will I be able to speak with the clinical preceptors? Will I be able to speak with the patients if they speak Samoan and I speak English? So although the official language in Samoa is the Samoan language, many individuals do speak English as well. All of our clinical preceptors, all of our clinical supervisors do speak English. Some of the patients will as well. And so you can be assured that your language of instruction is going to be in English, and that you do not need to become fluent in the Samoan language in your first 2 years at OUM in order to successfully complete your clinical rotation in Samoa. The language of instruction is in English. We do recommend that students learn some common words and phrases, like how to say hello, how to say goodbye, how to say please and thank you, how to say pain, fever, those sorts of things. Again, you don't even have to know those, but it can really help with your rapport with your clinical supervisor, with other hospital staff, and of course with your patients as well. So I believe that our office staff has provided a bit of a primer on some of the words, so we can look at those today. Okay, a couple of questions in the Q&A box. So Anthony would like to know which other countries students can choose to complete their clinical rotations, if required, apart from Australia, New Zealand, and Samoa. So because of licensure requirements in various jurisdictions, we do recommend that students complete the majority of their clinical rotations in their home country. So if you are an Australian permanent resident and you're planning to obtain licensure and practice in Australia, we recommend that you complete the majority of your rotations in Australia. And we have a second set of office staff in Australia that work on securing your clinical rotations in Australia. Same with New Zealand, Samoa, the United States, and Canada. So those in North America complete the majority of their rotations in the United States. There are some limited placements in Canada as well. Our rotations in the United States and in Australia and in Canada are being updated and changing all the time. So I can't give you specifics like, are there going to be clinical rotations in my state, in my province, in my territory in 2028? I can't give you a definitive yes right now. However, what I can say is that we do have administrative staff in all of the countries that continuously work on securing rotations. And many times we're able to find rotations in students' local areas, working with students who have local contacts at hospitals and within clinics. So to answer Anthony's question, we recommend that you complete your clinical rotations in your home country where you intend to practice. You can complete more than 4 weeks of clinical rotations in Samoa. So for instance, during COVID lockdowns, we had students who were in Samoa and opted to stay in Samoa and complete the remainder of their clinical rotations during a time period where Australian medical students were restricted from from learning in hospital, and they were able to complete their rotations there in Samoa and were eventually able to obtain their registration in Australia, and those medical students are now practicing clinicians in Australia. But under normal circumstances, we like to see students completing their rotations in their home country. Bruna would like to know and has a question. Thank you so much for the presentation. I'm from New Jersey, not too far away from me. I'm in Canada. And I wanted to ask if OUM currently has any clinical rotation sites in New Jersey or nearby states. If not, is it possible for students to set up clinical rotations there? And where are most of OUM's clinical rotations in the US currently located? So we do have rotation sites across many different states in the US. I actually don't think we have any students rotating in New Jersey at the moment. That doesn't mean that if you are in New Jersey, Bruna, that you cannot rotate in New Jersey once you get to clinical rotations. Our administrative staff in the US is constantly working on site agreements with hospitals. So often we'll have students who come in and they say, I'm in this state, I would like to have rotations near my home. I'd like to rotate at this hospital. I think this would be a good fit. And then OUM's administrative team will do a site review. We'll make sure that the site meets our standards for our clinical rotations. We'll make sure that there are appropriate clinical supervisors available, and then we're able to sign off on that. Most of our US students currently are rotating in sites in West Virginia. We also have a site in Chicago as well. And then we have students in various states across the US that are rotating in their home state as well. Anonymous would like to know, are we able to secure a residence before we arrive in Samoa? Absolutely. So in addition to our Samoan office staff who can get you in touch with the residence that's across the street from TTM or other residences that are close by, there's a really strong network of students at OUM that share information about their experience in Samoa and being able to give you information about where they stay stayed, where they ate, what sites to see, how they scheduled that, whether they rented a car, so on and so forth. The vast majority of students do have their residence rented, so that they're available. They come right from the airport to their residence, and that's secured before they arrive in Samoa. Chris wanted to know, I saw that California residents could do the clinical portion in California. Are you able to share the city where the partner hospital is located? We actually have 3 different students who are California residents who are rotating in 3 different sites in California now. I can't guarantee, Chris, that those same sites will have agreements with by the time that you complete your rotations, but what I can tell you is that if you're interested in a particular site for your rotation or a particular city, that you will be able to work with our administrative staff in the United States to see if that's an appropriate fit and could be scheduled for your clinical rotations there. That's the way that our 3 students who are currently in California are doing their rotations right now. All right, you can keep those questions coming. I'm gonna move on with a bit more information from our administrative staff in Samoa. So people like to know a little bit about what it's gonna be like in Samoa. So the culture in Samoa is very welcoming, very kind. They have the Fa Samoa, which is the Samoan way. It's very much about family, community, faith, and the welcoming of visitors. So Samoans are quite friendly, hospitable people. They will be friendly to you when you arrive. They will be interested to know more about you. But remember that just because they are very friendly and their culture is very friendly doesn't mean that you, as someone who doesn't know anyone, or doesn't know that person in particular, should automatically trust them. So just as you would be a visitor in any country, you want to make sure that you keep a safe space and are keeping your health and safety paramount. Women in Samoa wear more modest clothing while they're in town, but there are lots of lovely beaches in Samoa that our students make visits to in their small amounts of free time, and don't have any issues with their swimwear or beachwear when they're on beach. Each village has village protocol, and you may be visiting Samoan villages as part of touring or as part of your clinical work in Samoa. So you'll be given information about village protocol if you are visiting a village as part of your clinical work. And if you're planning to visit a village or villagers as part of touring, it's important that you get some local information about what the protocol is in that village before visiting. You can get that kind of level of information from our office staff in Samoa. Often host families will invite you to join for a meal, and it's considered rude to decline. So you can graciously accept those kinds of invitations. You can be kind and straightforward, and they will return that. Villages in Samoa do have curfews for morning and evening prayers and dinner time. That will usually be part of the village protocol that you would learn about before you go to that village. Religion is a part of life in Samoa, and that means Sunday is a holy day. So it's a day that most of our students may join some Samoans at church if they share that religion, or many individuals may go just to learn more about that, even if it's not their religion, or a lot of students may also choose that quiet day for study and for catch up. So those are some of the things to know about the encounters that you may have in Samoa. The weather is very beautiful. The average temperature ranges from 24 to 30 degrees. The temperature of the water is in the low 20s, so it's a really popular location for swimming and snorkeling. It's warm and humid there all year round. There are wet and dry seasons, but even if it's in the wet season, it's gorgeous, and the dry season, it's gorgeous as well. Most people carry around fans because of the humidity for relief in the afternoons. So you may see that when you go. You may end up bringing home a number of Samoan fans for friends and family on your return. It's advised to talk with other students about kind of the types of clothing that they brought with them to Samoa, so that you can pack appropriately. All OUM students have a pair of OUM scrubs that they, a pair or two of OUM scrubs that they wear in hospital. So you don't need to worry about that aspect, uniform aspect. In Samoa, it's sometimes difficult if you are not getting around by taxi or not traveling with someone local, because the streets have names, but there's no numbers on the buildings. You won't be given directions in like meters or kilometers, or by following addresses. They'll just kind of name a building that's close by, or a shop that's near there, something that's in that vicinity that's well known, and that's how you're expected to get around. So keep that in mind if you've picked out some places on a map before you go, a tour around that you'd like to have, that you may have some difficulty doing that. Even if you go via taxi, you won't necessarily be able to give an address to where you need to go. You would want to say, oh, I want to go to the Waga Beach, which is like near to the city hall. You wouldn't be able to give a particular address for that. Okay, language, but before that, I see a question from Anonymous, who asks, when I say that most students stay across from TTM, is that because there isn't enough room for everyone, or just because some choose to stay elsewhere for personal reasons? So there's no lodging available within the TTM hospital. It's all hospital facilities, but right across the street from TTM hospital, there is a residence building that has units for monthly rental. And so that's where the majority of our students choose to stay. Some students do bring children or extended families with them when they go to Samoa for their clinical rotation. And so some students choose to rent houses further away from the hospital campus, but the most popular spot is that residence that's right across the street from the hospital. And that also saves on directions or getting lost when, of course, there's no street numbers to go by and you may not know the landmarks yet. So it's a popular spot for OUM students to stay, but of course you have a choice in where you would like to make your residence while you're in Samoa, but that cannot include the TTM hospital, because there's no place to stay there unless you are unlucky enough to become a patient of the hospital rather than a medical student doing your clinical rotation. Bruno wanted to know, I was just curious if any OUM students have completed their clinical rotations here in New Jersey or are currently based here. Also, do you know if there have been any challenges or restrictions with OUM graduates becoming licensed or practicing in New Jersey after completing the program? I do know of one student who was New Jersey based, and I think we also have I can't remember. I'm thinking of a different student. I actually can't remember if they're in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. I'm pretty sure that they're in New Jersey. And I have not heard of any challenges or restrictions for New Jersey specifically. What you would want to do is go to your state licensing board's website, and they will usually have information about the medical education credentials that the licensing board will accept. So many states will require that the medical school have a a sponsor note or have registration in the World Directory for Medical Education, or WDME, which OUM is a part of WDME. And they'll also look for particular types of accreditation. So most states in the US will require that the medical schools accrediting body be accredited by WFME, which is the World Federation for Medical Education, which is the worldwide accrediting body for medical schools, and then it accredits countries for that then accredit internal medical schools. So you'd want to look on the licensing board website for your state to ensure that OUM is going to meet the requirements that are currently posted for that. But I can tell you that we do have students that are from New Jersey that have graduated from OUM, and I'm fairly certain that the student that I'm thinking of is in New Jersey rather than Pennsylvania, but I try to always be specific and clear. We do know each and every one of our students, but sometimes I don't always have the specific location in mind. Okay, so language. Here's some common words and phrases that you may like when you go to Samoa. And if you attend the webinar series, sometimes you hear me say things like talofa, which means hello, or fafatai, which means thank you. You might hear fa mole mole, which is please, or vai if you have a patient that's very thirsty. Vai means water. You might see afio mai, welcome. Or you might see someone saying tofa, which is goodbye. So it's helpful to just know some common things so that you can interact with people, show appreciation for their language and culture. Do you need to memorize each of these for your admissions interview at OUM? No, we connect all of our interviews in English, and our language of instruction is in English. All of our classes will be in English as well. In fact, we do require English if you have been instructed in your university degrees in a language other than English, that you provide us with a test of English as a foreign language. We accept different types of testing for that, since we do all of our instruction in English, and we want to make sure that you don't have any major barriers that are going to prevent you from engaging in the material as best you can. All right, I think that's it for our slides from, yes, that's it for our slides from our administrative offices in Samoa. I'm just checking our attendees box, and I'm just checking our Q&A. If there's any remaining questions before we close the session, I'd be happy to take them now. All right. Well, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us here at OUM today. I'm joining you from Canada, and I bet if I asked our attendees today, we'd have full representation from the 5 countries that OUM represents, and hopefully including Samoa as well. I hope that you found this session useful and that it provides you some context for the Samoan rotation if you are a resident or a citizen of a country outside of Samoa. And if you are a Samoan student, we encourage you to get in touch with our admissions office and counselors in Samoa to get some further information. We do offer scholarships to our Samoan students, so the office can provide you a bit more information about the scholarship process and about upcoming applications to the university. If any of you are part of our 2601 cohort and have just received your admission to the university, or you're about to accept your admission to the university, I look forward to connecting with you next week at our meet and greet for 2601 students. That is the students that are starting in January. And if you're not quite there yet in your medical student journey, I look forward to seeing you at our webinar next month on balancing healthy bodies and minds and wellness for medical students. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.